pharmaceutical medications, doctors in general, the medical industrial complex, and first thing is, I'm not a medical doctor and I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm just telling you my experience. Let's talk about Eliquis. Eliquis is a newer blood thinner, and had a recent episode, a pretty serious episode of AFib, atrial fibrillation, and it was pretty bad. My heart was way out of rhythm for days. I finally got into the doctor, and they prescribed Eliquis and metoprolol. Metoprolol is to more or less regulate your heartbeat and kind of bring it down to a reasonable level. I was over 100, trending over 100 sometimes. That's not good. 80 to 105, something like that. 90 to 105. And the Eliquis is, of course, to thin the blood, because the problem, as explained to me, when you have AFib, is that blood collects in that chamber of the top, just off of the top of your heart, the atrial chamber, I guess, and it can clot because it's not, the top of the heart is not moving the blood properly. You have a whole different problem if you have this in the lower part of the heart. Then it's very deadly. And but anyway, the blood not being pumped out, the heart just kind of quivering on the top, allows the blood to pool in that chamber and just sort of coagulate, turn into a big blood clot. That's extremely dangerous. It can go to your brain and kill you, or cause a massive stroke, a debilitating stroke. So I didn't want that. But I also didn't want the Eliquis. As you know, I have said many times, I'm sorry about the wind, ooh, that's quite something, that I don't want to be on prescription drugs. I eschew them as much as possible, and I've had to be, and I've had to have certain things done to me and for me, in large part to save my life on several occasions. But I don't buy into the pharmaceutical lies, and that is they want to put you on drugs for everything they possibly can. They do not care about you. The pharmaceutical companies do not. You may find a doctor that does, and you're lucky when you do, because most of them are corporate tools. I have to say that, but a lot of them are good. But this Eliquis comes with side effects. Drugs are toxic, my friend, and Eliquis can cause spinal clotting. It can cause general blood clotting when you get off of it. You can have blood clots because the body can throw clots when you stop using it. And there are other side effects, which are numerous, including liver damage, possible liver damage. These are all possibilities. Well, I don't want to be on something like that. And here's what happened. I went in and I was told that I might have to have the paddles. I might have to be shocked to set my heart back in rhythm. I finally got in to see a cardiologist, and they scheduled for me the next day shocking. She said, we're not ready for ablation yet. That's another thing where they go up through your artery in your leg and introduce some electrical current to part of your heart or surrounding area that regenerates the pathway of current through your body. And it's not something that I can properly explain. Talk to your cardiologist. But in general, that's what it does. You've created sort of a new pathway, and that's what's causing of conductivity, and that's what's causing your heart not to beat properly. It's just like your wiring is out of sync or out of place, crossed wires there. And so the first way they can address it is shock you with the paddles, and that'll reset your rhythm. That's what they were going to do with me. But after 2 weeks of this, the night before I was scheduled to go in, my heart went back into rhythm. Thank God, because I had gone down there. Well, yeah. So I still have an appointment, a follow-up appointment to see this doctor. And she told me she wanted me I told her I want to stop taking these drugs, this metoprolol and Eliquis. Those drugs are toxic. And the guy that did my EKG at the facility where they were going to paddle my heart said as much. He agreed with me. He said, yeah. And his words were, drugs are toxic. I said, that's what I've always been telling people. So anyway, this cardiologist, lovely lady, lovely doctor, told me, well, you have to be on it for the time being because we don't want you to have a clot and have a stroke. God forbid. The kicker is, she told me, all right, you can take it for the time being just to protect your heart, protect you from this potential blood clot, but when you're 65, I want you to be on it for the rest of your life. That is so depressing to me. I think people just are programmed to follow along and to believe, and I understand it's our health. And but for me personally, again, I could let me just say I'm a researcher, because that's kind of the legal way around this. Is you become a researcher, and that gives credence to your thought process or your ability to be able to do what you're doing. I don't know. So in my estimation, I'm better off finding a holistic, less non-toxic alternative to thin my blood. And this nattokinase is reputed to, I mean, millions of anecdotal stories about how it thins people's blood. And this stuff can be proven and regulates heartbeat and does all kinds of wonderful things for the body, and it's non-toxic. Look, I don't want to be foolhardy. I don't want to take chances with my life. I understand that this is a gamble, but I understand also that these doctors are programmed by the medical industry. And again, the pharmaceutical is one of the most massive powers in the universe. The influence they have is unreal, right? The old ways are dying because they are not profitable to the pharmaceutical company. That's it, plain and simple. So I've got a doctor telling me, I want you to take this drug for the rest of your life. And I know in the back of my mind that, hey, they could very well one day and very soon come out and say, oh, it turns out that this is damaging people's livers. Or saying, this is the kind of thing I typically hear is, the warfarin, the blood thinner previous to that was they kind of took that off the market or stopped prescribing it because of the side effects, and they prescribe this now because that one they consider to be more dangerous. So how is this one going to be 5 years from now? You see what I'm saying? So we should all be looking for more natural, non-toxic alternatives. I've had so many doctors with such confidence tell me things that were not so. I had a psychologist tell me when my boy was 7 years old in early schooling, that we need to put him on this psychotropic drug because he's got ADD. I said, no, he doesn't. He's not going to get on any drug. And I refused it. They had me take him to a psychologist. The psychologist said, yes, this Ritalin or one alternative or one of those would be very helpful to him and help him concentrate. I said, well, I'm not going to do that to him. I'm not going to pollute his body with a pharmaceutical because he's a little boy and to make the teacher's life easier. My boy turned out to be a huge success. He's a wonderful man today with his own child. He didn't need to be on that. And I had a relative, who was a child who was on those psychotropic drugs, and the mother was a psychologist, and it totally ruined this kid's brain and his psyche. And I don't know if he's overcome it or not. So again, you like the doctor telling me you need to take this blood pressure medication for the rest of your life, presumably, because your blood vessels are old now. I just don't buy into everything they say. You understand? As for the medication, and so I agreed to be on it until I could do my own research, and I found a supplement called Nattokinase. I think it's Nattokinase or some such. But there have been numerous studies that show its efficacy. And it is a fermented bean product discovered by the Japanese, I believe. And it is something that can help regulate your heartbeat. It can help with lowering blood pressure. It can do a number of things, but I would strongly urge you to research this and maybe talk to your doctor. But as an alternative to the more dangerous blood thinners, I would, for my money, that's what I'm doing. Well, that is exactly what I'm doing. I've been off of the Eliquis for 3 weeks. I was told I should be on it for at least another 3 from now. And I've been using the Nattokinase. And if I have a problem, if my heart does go out of sync, I can use the metoprolol, of which I have a bottle and a half still in stock, to sort of help me along the way. But I'm not really having problems. I'm pretty much regulated. If I do exercise, and if I overdo it, I'll start skipping a beat, like 1 in every 10 beats. That's not great. And it happened recently. It lasted, 18 hours or so, and my heart went back into rhythm again. So all of this, I think, stems from giving blood, donating blood, and I have a history or a propensity for AFib. And so you cannot donate blood, is my understanding. If you have AFib, it can be very dangerous. And my wife shared with me that the week that we donated blood after the event, we went the same time together. And she had heart palpitations. And she didn't want to tell me about it, which drives me crazy, because she didn't want to scare me, because I've been having issues sleeping, and not recently, but she doesn't want to cause any issues. But I said, tell me when you have a problem like that, for God's sake. And of course, a day or two later, I ended up with a pretty chronic version of that. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. At least research Nattokinase, okay? It has some pretty amazing benefits, properties to this substance. What is the bean? It's a fermented soybean. It's definitely worth researching. It's quick and easy to learn all you can about it. And try it for your blood pressure. I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying we're all researchers, right? So that is the story I want to share with you. And, I would tell the doctor, I know that she would say to me, you're really taking chances using they think this stuff is voodoo. Let's face it, doctors are trained to believe that anything other than mainstream medicine and pharmaceuticals is voodoo. It's not good. It's hippy-dippy bullshit. We really prefer the holistic alternative measures if ever we can avail ourselves. But I would tell the doctor, as I've told other doctors, I know I'm going to die. I just don't want the pharmaceutical industry to put the bullet in me, to pull the trigger, right? And they tried to get me. Let me tell you one more story here. Was it almost 20 years ago? I expressed that I had been using an herb called kratom. It was a pain reliever. It turned out to be a drug, and I was naive, in my 40s, go figure. And I think it pushed my blood pressure way up. And I got off of it, but the blood pressure remained high, and I went in, and the doctors told me, I said, okay, I understand. So what they do is they just tell you you have a problem, and they throw a drug at it. They don't say, look, here's what's going on. Here's why you have a problem. Here's the root cause, and this is the stem, and they don't tell you any of that. They're trained and that a lot of this is incented by pharmaceutical companies. A lot of this training they get, believe it, they're trained to find a problem and find a drug to match the problem. I'd like to think, and I would believe you if you told me you had a doctor that does more than that, but that's the run of the mill. That's generally how they practice. So he told me, well, you have high blood pressure. I said, why? He said, well, because you're older now, and your blood vessels, your vascular system is more rigid. It's not as supple as it was when you were younger. And I'm thinking, I'm a powerhouse, man. Come on. This can't be me. And if he had told me, do you drink a lot of coffee? If he had inquired, try stopping drinking coffee. I would have said, man, screw you. I would have thrown a fit. But I would have said, all right, I'll try it. And I would have recognized that my blood pressure went down. And I say that, I had this blood pressure because of this herb, but really it was exacerbated by the caffeine. Caffeine causes cortisol to be released in your system, stress hormone, and your blood pressure rises. And I had been drinking coffee since I'm 6, 7 years old. I used to drink coffee and chicory every day with my mom when I was a little boy. And I drank that for 40, 50 years there, and I got to where I was drinking a pot of coffee a day by myself, fully caffeinated. And man, that will drive your blood pressure up. I got off of the coffee and my pressure came down. So this is the problem, and that is so exemplary. That's such a good description of the problem with the industrial medical complex. They really enlarge the body. They don't care about you. That industry. Again, you might find the brave researchers and the brilliant, compassionate doctors, the altruists in that large group. Yes, they exist, but as generally, the industry, particularly the pharmaceutical industry, is not looking out for your interest. They're looking out for their bottom line. They're making their shareholders and themselves ultra rich. Okay, so take it for what it's worth. One man's story, one man's diatribe. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk more soon.